morning. It's John from ManeReviews again this morning. I'm out in the field with both Aharon and Daniel from Spa Bodé for Men. I'm very excited about this because I think there's going to be some great information that we can take away and apply. But before I get into the interview, I just want to make reference to the fact Aharon struggles with cystic fibrosis and he has a bit of a cough. So we'll work our way through that. So just be aware. Good morning, both of you.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. So, Daniel, I'm going to start with you. In our conversation earlier, we talked about how Spa Bodé for Men is different from other spas in Toronto. And I know that you offer some services that are unique to Spa Bodé. So can you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Spa Bodé is basically, it is a spa for men, but just like all spas are for women and accept men, we're for men and accept women. But majority of our clientele, 90%, are of basically the male population. So we've had to come up with services that gear towards them. What people don't realize is that a lot of times in school, you could complete a whole program and maybe spend 2 days dealing with men's issues. So you really don't delve into it too much. And most of our services have come to us basically by our clients themselves asking for certain things that I've been working with them over the last 20 years. Simple things as clipping, shaving, Brazilians for men, back waxes. Why do they react a certain way compared to women? Like, things are very different in that way. So it's every step of the way has been even further education for myself to figure out what is needed to make sure that those services come off properly for them.
So in saying that, because those services are unique to Spa Bodé, I'm guessing that you get a lot of referrals, Aharon.
Yeah, a lot of our referrals are just from word of mouth from our own clientele who've had a good experience with us.
And I want to also make mention here how I ended up at Spa Bodé. I was brought here by a friend, and I had such an amazing experience. I believe that the service that I had and the customer service that I experienced was just, it was so incredible. I couldn't wait to share it with other people. And then immediately come back with Aharon and Daniel to see if there would be an opportunity for us to have this conversation. So just wanted you to know that's how this all began. So again, it was an incredible experience, and it's evident to me you have the recipe for success. And we talked about that a little earlier. From a marketing perspective, from staff retention, and let's just talk a little bit about that, because earlier, Aharon, you were sharing with me how now your staff are referring other staff. That doesn't often happen in this industry.
No?
So of course it doesn't. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. It seems strange for us talking about it sometimes because it just feels like it should be common sense, which comes down to respecting your staff. So it's things down to giving them a flexible work schedule. So when people come and join our team, we ask them, what is the ideal work schedule like for you? If you're not a morning person, then you're not going to work a morning shift, because we want you to be at your best. If you have choirs on Wednesdays and Thursday nights, then you are not going to work on those nights, because we know that you should have a work-life balance. So that's one of the things that we do, is having a nice customized schedule. Birthdays, we always throw them a little card and gift on their birthdays, on their anniversaries with us. We mark those times as well. Quarterly, we try to have staff get-togethers, either it's an escape room or a restaurant out or something. Those are some of the little things that we do. And so our staff like being with us, they stay with us, and now they're starting to refer other people to work.
That is amazing. And I work a lot with salons, and one of the challenges that I find is getting referrals, client referrals. And I know that that's something we spoke a little earlier about, and Aharon, you said that it's a non-issue for you. Can you just share a little bit, why are you so successful when it comes to client referrals?
A lot of marketers will talk about needing a referral program in which there's like an incentive for people to want to refer. And Dan had implemented that years ago at Bode, and it just didn't work because the clients didn't want it. They were almost insulted. They kind of felt like I will refer people to you because you do a good job, because I value what you do, rather than because I get $10 off or I get a free mini express service. They would oftentimes say no. Even when we had the referral program, they would say no to the program.
In the end, they just wanted to help us become successful because they enjoyed being there and they wanted to know that we'd be there tomorrow for them. They weren't caring about the fact of, like Aharon was saying, those free services. Marketing is very different for men than it is for women. And in the spa industry, it is a very private thing for a lot of men. It's a one-on-one they're looking for.
Right.
So they're not looking for the mass of whatever. I've even had a gentleman that literally has come into the spa. Somebody greeted him that he knew. You could see they were both not upset, but both after the greeting, they sort of ignored each other and sat on opposite sides of the spa. And then when I brought him into his room, he was like, I can't believe I saw somebody from work. This is where I come to get away. And then he laughed and said, why did I even bother telling him about this place? So even though he recommended it him, it was a space for him. So when he comes to see us, it's his place to get away and he doesn't want to be on, sort of thing. It's his place to shut down.
What we've noticed with our own clients is that, like Dan said, men tend to want to turn off socially and sort of put the guards down when they come to a spa-like setting. So that's why in the seating room, we don't have couches where two men can sit side by side. There's individual chairs in different points of the room. Because if one guy's sitting here and then someone else comes in, he's not sitting next to him. He's going to sit at the other end. And then the third guy will want to sit somewhere in the middle. So everything from the waiting area to all the treatments are done in the rooms themselves rather than having like a communal pedicure room. Guys don't like that.
They don't like that. Daniel, that statement you made earlier was very powerful, and I'm thinking as we're having this conversation, I've never had a spa or a salon owner say that to me. And by that, what I'm making reference to is that you said the reason that your clients, one of the reasons, refer other people is they want to see you both succeed, and they value the service that you provide, and they see this as a tranquil, safe place. And so that's one of the reasons, or the primary reason that they refer. You don't often hear that. It's usually value-based, or it's about the salon, or it's never that common. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's very powerful, and that speaks to the relationship that you have with your clients.
Well, I feel like the work that we do here in a spa-like setting, it's not just about the cut or the facial. We have some clients who see us on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, and we're just part of their self-care. I know that over our 15 years, we have stories of people who lost jobs, lost loved ones, and we were part of their grieving process. We have people who celebrate some key times in their lives with us. I have a client who had the courage to come out because of the space that we were able to provide and the conversations that we had. So you never know the role that you play in someone's life, and when you give them the space to have that dialogue, they come to value.
That breaks down a lot of barriers, because in the salons that I'm often dealing with stylists and colorists in particular, they don't seem to see the value that you were just making reference to, the relationship with that client and creating that safe space. Because as soon as you do that, all those barriers come down and the relationship becomes so strong, and the likelihood of that client ever leaving you becomes virtually nil.
Mm-hmm. When I was taking bartending classes, I'll never forget my bartending teacher. One of the first lessons he taught us was, this bar is your house, and you are the owner of the house. So everyone who sits at your bar are sitting in your house. So treat them the way you would treat someone in your house. And that's always stuck with me, those words.
And I agree. I mean, we talk about that a lot. The greeting when the client comes into your spa or into a salon, the importance of acknowledging them and making sure that they feel safe and they feel comfortable. Something else I want to talk about, because we spoke about it briefly again this morning, is the product line that you carry. If I can, I'm going to take one and I'm going to show you, because when we were looking at it this morning, I really like the packaging. I think it's very, very clean. It's very masculine. And I know that you've done a lot of research, and Daniel, we spoke briefly about it this morning. Do you want to just talk a little bit about the product?
Well, we've been working or taking sort of my 20 years in the business and working on products that basically men have been talking to me about or finding that difficult to choose from, or where we're noticing a lack in the industry because so many men have a difficulty switching from drugstore brand to spa brand, and where do they, and a lot of it has to do with price. A lot of it also has to do with confusion. If you walk into a drugstore now, the men's aisle for personal care items is huge, and you stare at this huge wall of stuff and you can never decipher what is what. So we decided to make sure that our packaging was clean, simple. It tells you exactly what it is. It tells you how to use it to make your choices easier. And we're trying to put it at a price point that men can now start to hopefully go from the drugstore to this. And we're containing the ingredients that are very simple as well, tend to be clean, not full of fillers, so that we feel very confident in the product that people are using. But again, it's taking the history of what we've had and working on clients and them telling us the problems they're having. So we're developing products that help them solve their problems.
So this kind of overlaps. ManeReviews, one of the things that we put a lot of emphasis on is the importance of the consultation. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming that when you have a client, especially if it's a first-time client, that you talk to them about skincare, and I put a lot of emphasis on educating that client, and I think that goes back to our earlier conversation this morning, Daniel, when you were saying explaining to the client, like I think you made reference to the shaving cream, and you said that it has all the necessary components so that you don't even need a moisturizer after the fact because it satisfies all those needs. How would a client ever know that if you didn't explain it to them?
Yeah, you have to explain every product. Even when we do our facials and we bring a client into the room, other than your actual facial massage cream, there's nothing else in the room, because how do I know what your skin is like? And even if you're somebody who sees me regularly, I don't know if you just came back from vacation, if you've just had a cold, if you're dehydrated, or you've been sweating lately, your skin is going to be different every time you come in. So I can't make those judgment calls until I see you, as well as it's a great time for me to find out exactly what do you do as your daily routine? What are you looking for? I'm not going to try to explain to a guy a 5-step program when he uses an all-in-one body wash for everything on his body, including his face everywhere. He just needs a proper wash. So why am I going to, sort of inundate him with too much information? I want to make sure that whatever we're talking about or doing for his service is directly for him.
And that's why we also have the apprentice facial too. That's I think we added that about 2 years ago. Yeah. The apprentice facial is like a 1-hour facial with a really long consult in the beginning where we find out how do you shave. We then teach you how to shave properly and the products that you should be choosing. What are you doing for your skincare? Here are the things to do, not do, avoid. Because as men, we don't talk to each other about this. We don't get this kind of education from our parents growing up. So where do you turn to? So that's why we have that as well.
Yeah, that's what we sort of tease is like, especially men, is when it comes to shaving. You hit that age where you have to start shaving. Dad or brother or someone threw you in the bathroom with a razor and a can of shaving cream, gave you 1 or 2 instructions. You come out bleeding.
Yep.
Slap on the back and welcome to manhood. And you shave the same way ever since. Yeah. And you sort of fumble with what you try to find to use. So we actually break that down for you. It's like by looking at your skin, looking at your hair. What is it you should be using? Because it's not generic. It's not the same for every guy. Mm-hmm. How does your beard grow? So some people have hairs that grow in completely different directions and 3 or 4 different ways on their face. So it's teaching them how to properly shave and what products should they use specifically for them. And we've come in a time, we've gone through sort of like that 40s and 50s where we've, there's that mass sort of industry where things were made quickly, things were made with tons of chemicals. Right. So guys all of a sudden were taught that you have to slap stuff on your face that burns. When we look back and we really talk to maybe our grandparents or or people older, we tend to find out that they used to shave with the straight razor or the safety razor. They had a bar of soap that was specifically meant for their face. They didn't put stingy stuff on. And where does that come from? Well, before you were always cleaning your blades properly, or there was a lot more disease in the world. So you put on stuff that basically, like alcohol or other things, to kill the germs. We don't have that same issue these days. So why are we still in the idea that we have to burn our face? So now what they do is they just stick a tingly essential oil in your stuff so that you still get that like, oh wow. But what is it doing? Absolutely nothing other than tingling your face. So what's the purpose? 0. So why not have something that you shave your face with and you only need one item instead of 3?
So then that goes back again to the education that you're providing the client and the value behind that education.
Yeah.
I'd like you to talk a little bit, because I don't think that we made mention of the fact that this is a second location. Your first location was in Ottawa.
Still is.
And a success story. And so now you've branched out and you've opened the second location. Any suggestions, anything you want to share with us that's helped you to achieve this success?
Well, you do your research in the area too. So I was teaching and educating a lot out here with other spas on men's services particularly. And one of the things you tend to notice is, because this is still a new industry, like men in spas kind of side of things, people will open up a spa for men, stick up the sign spa for men, but really they're doing services for women, but they've just given it different names. They haven't taken the extra education or finding out from the client what are they truly looking for.
The setting too.
The setting.
Like they'll have the like row of pedicure chairs, but instead of typical pedicure chairs, it'll be like lazy boys, and then they'll have like sports playing on. So they butched it up thinking this equals masculinity, but little do they have they done the proper research, and men don't like that setup. So they're almost doomed to fail from the beginning.
Yeah. Or that they'll like the video games or they'll like the sports channel, but if the service isn't there, once or twice after that you going there for those things, well, I can play video games anywhere, I can watch my sports anywhere, why would I want to go there if the service isn't there? And the other big one is, I think, because of the fact that they feel they're tackling a new market, they open up a huge place, or a place that they feel is like perfect place, dead center of town, and their overhead is amazing. And the problem is you know what? If your guys aren't going to be busting down the door. It takes a little while to gain that momentum. So 3 years here in Toronto, and it was going into almost our second and a half year where we were able to get into a location that we feel now is the perfect size. We call them almost like spa pods. So for us, we found a 3-service room with a good size waiting area is just perfect, but we're referring to this like East Toronto. So there will be another location, maybe another, who knows, but this is the perfect one to maintain. We're going to need about 12 to 15 staff to run this 3-room thing on a regular basis. So it's not tiny in that factor, and we are open the 7 days a week. So you have to really look at your overhead and be able to make sure that you can maintain that before you grow.
Like for anyone who's interested in possibly growing into another location, do it small and organically if you can. I mean, like Dan mentioned, Bodé Toronto started off in a 1 treatment room space with Dan alone, and then I joined on board, and then we brought in a 3rd person, and now that we then outgrew that 1 room, so then we went to a 2-room space, outgrew that space, and now we're in this 3-room space, which we find is a great sweet spot for us. So now we've learned 3 rooms is enough for us. Any bigger, we would be better served in Toronto to be at another location, because in Toronto people are more geographically neighborhood oriented. They're not going to cross the city. Right. Whereas something in Ottawa, most people do have cars, a lot of people commute and travel, and there's not enough, I think, density of people to merit having multiple locations. So for Ottawa, we would stay as a 1 space. So know your city, know your clients, and grow organically if you can.
I think that's great advice, actually.
And pick your space. Like, we're lucky enough that where we're located, we're not dead center. And again, men want to get to you, but they don't want everybody knowing that you're, obviously he's walking into the spa. It's almost like a private club in a way.
Right.
But we're close to working downtown. We're close to a whole different, like 4 or 5 different sort of professional living areas. We're also right off the DVP, so like even people from the outskirts of Toronto find us super easy to reach. So really, really look at your locations.
Yeah, be aware of public transit, be aware of other restaurants and other things that might bring traffic or activity. Be aware of the reputation of the neighborhood.
So it seems to me like you have the perfect recipe. So then that begs the question, there will be other locations, obviously.
Yes. We're working on those. We can't give too much away, but yeah, we are looking at other locations. And it sounds kind of funny, but I think both for Aaron and myself is there was a plan from way back when I started my own first spa about 20 years ago, and it's coming to fruition. I now have 2 locations in places that I said I would. We have a product line that I said we would. There are other locations that were mentioned in the original plan, and they are being looked at, and other locations we didn't think of that may be adding to that. So it is growing the way we wanted to with the plan. But if I have to say anything, is none of this would have happened if I didn't listen to my clients. It's my clients who also travel the world who come back and tell me about services that I should look into. What are they looking for? Like, as a simple one, did I originally shave people's backs? No, why would I? But hang on, most guys are looking into doing laser hair removal. Most laser hair removal places won't shave you. They tell you to go home and have your friend, your wife, your boyfriend, whoever it is, to shave you. Well, good luck, because most partners don't want to shave anybody's back. So that's how it ended up on my list, is because people are turning to me going, I can't do this, I can't reach my back. So you need to listen to your clientele. Or the first time I was ever asked to do a Brazilian on a man, was kind of like, you've got to be joking. Okay, I have to figure out where to go. Luckily enough, through research, I found 2 women who were teaching this stuff out in California. Now, from the way I used to do that procedure to the way we do it now is so different, uniquely us. But I mean, I did one maybe every 4 or 5 months. I don't even want to tell you how many I do in a day. There's some days I come to work, that's all I do for 12 hours.
Wow.
So it shows you what ends up happening, but it all comes from the most important thing is to listen to what your clients are looking for.
Mm-hmm. That's a very powerful statement as well. So I'm just trying to think how I can summarize all of this great information up, because there's so many takeaways for folks that are going to be looking at this once we post it. Suggestions on how they can be more successful in business. I think, Aaron, that suggestion you made to grow organically. I have a background in franchise sales and marketing, and I know the importance of perfecting it, whatever that concept is, perfecting it. And then once you perfect it, then you can replicate it. And obviously that's what you've done, and that's what you'll continue to do. Again, I think that you found the recipe. And folks, if I can say anything, I don't think there is a secret recipe. I think it's, when you say, I listen to my clients, and when you say, I listen to my staff, and I identify what their wants and needs are, and that's what you work with, I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah, a lot of books which always seem to sound the same, because they always go back to these core ideas, but that's really is the core of it, is who are you, who is your client, what do they want? As a business owner, your job is to address a need. So identify and really figure out what are the needs, how do they want me to perform those needs, and if you can get that, that's a good chunk of it. Also growing other small little tips too is, oh no, it's gone. The idea's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone.
But I think it comes down to, for us, is what was finally funny. Like, Bode is a play on words. It started in Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
We're very close to basically being Ottawa and Quebec and everything else like that. So that, there's a bit of an accent that goes on. So instead of body, it's Bode or Bode kind of thing. And it's just a play on that. But then when you take the word, and we had to say, okay, so who do we stand for and what do we do? And I think really once we broke that down, that was the hardest thing to do, is really question, but that is what has helped us understand who we are to our clients and to our staff. And Aaron, why don't you just say what it stands for?
Yeah. So a marketing exercise that we did was to try and identify our core values. And we started making lists and figuring them out. And we noticed that some of them actually lined up with some of the letters in the word Bodé. So we thought, let's just go all in and do the acronym. So B stands for building relationships, and also it's important that that's the first, because that's how we got to where we are, is through the relationships with our staff, relationships with our clients. O is offering safe space. D is delivering results. No matter how great you are or how great the space is, if you're not delivering on the needs. And then E is for education. So those are kind of the 4 pillars that support everything behind us.
I just think it's amazing. But you know what? I just want to touch on one other thing. There's a lot of emphasis being placed on safe space today. And I know that's something we at ManeReviews aspire to work very closely with salon owners to create that safe space. Can you just talk to me a little bit about what you've done, what your practices are, as it relates to creating that safe space to attract those people?
Sure. I think one of the key ones is always approaching our work from like a humble place. We frequently hear of how spas, restaurants, barbershops, there's this attitude of you're lucky to be in my walls, or you're lucky to have me work on you, and it's really the other way around.
It's the other way around.
So not having an attitude, I think, is a really big one.
Being open, because a lot of times our clients will come and see us, but it's never really until their third visit they really tell you why they're there. They may even choose a simple service because it's one they're not scared of doing, but it's only by the third or fourth visit they really tell you really why they're there and what they're looking at. It's because men are shy. They don't always know what's going on there. Part of that, when you're saying safe spaces, one of my oldest, one of the clients that I remember the most for a long time is the fact that he called around due to doctors' sort of recommendations that he should get certain things done. And when he was calling around at all the different spas that said they did have man services, they laughed at him. They called him a pervert. Why are you asking for this? Horrible, horrible things, until finally one place basically said, no, we don't, but we know a place that does, and this is the place to call, which ended up being us. And it simply came down to, it's somebody who suffers with Crohn's disease. And basically they have a lot of problems with, keeping an area where they don't feel that it's uncomfortable. So they had to come in for, a sugaring treatment. Yep. It was all very simple, but it's probably on to 15 years that this person's coming in like every month and a half for the same service.
Wow.
That's, a big thing. But what it was is that we're a comfortable place. He can come, he feels at ease, doesn't have to explain why he's there. It's a medical condition. He doesn't have to say anything anymore. So it's about creating spaces for those things. And you don't know who your client is. That's the biggest thing, so you can't hold an attitude. The things that people have shared with us over time, I guess the kind of way I explain it is like we're sort of like the new bartender, or we always talk about salons and everything. It's like the things we get told are amazing, and they are. I don't know the number of times I walk out of a room and just shake my head in two ways. One is like, did I really need to know all that? The other one is wow, what a place that we've created that somebody feels safe enough to explain all that.
To share it.
Yeah.
And so it's about not having the attitude, creating that emotional space, and then the physical space will reflect that as well. Like for us, we worked at other places that had like a very sort of cold clinical feel, and our own clients said, this isn't how I associate Bodé. You guys shouldn't really be here. It doesn't go with you guys, because you're more of a warm, inviting kind of energy, so the place should be that way as well. So also be mindful of what your brand is and what the experience people want. Try to have a physical space that also matches that a little bit.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's another very powerful statement, and it's something that a lot of salon and spa owners miss is, like you said, what is your brand? What do you want your brand to look like? And then once you identify what that is and put it in place, be consistent with delivering on those guidelines as it relates to your brand.
I wonder how many business owners could benefit from just being a client in their own business for a day. Like, come in not as the owner seeing things, but coming in as fresh as you can, and like sit in this chair in the waiting room and look around and see from the vantage point of your client. Have that conversation with your therapist as a client and see what it's like. I think you might get some info from that too.
I think that's a great suggestion, and I think there's, again, incredible value whenever you can bring an outside source to come in and critique your business, because if you're coming in and you see the same thing every day, we tend to have blinders on and we miss things that are important. So I think there's an incredible amount of value there as well. So, well, guys, I think we covered a lot.
Yeah.
I think there's some great information. I want to thank you both. It was a pleasure to meet you, and I again appreciate you taking the time to speak with me this morning. And I'm certain that we'll have future conversations, and I look forward to Bodé number 3.
Me too.
Aaron, it was
Thank
a pleasure.
you.
Daniel,
Thank you
so much.